welcome back to the Healthy Pod. I am Nicole, your host and friend, and I'm so excited to be here with Rachel for part 2 of our discussion. There was just so much to talk about, and I feel like there was so much left to be said, so we needed a part 2. I'm so excited. She is here. We are chatting. I know we were chatting about a lot of deep things, maybe some unexpected, maybe some expected, but I can't wait to dig deeper. Welcome, Rachel. How are you?
I'm so happy to be back. I'm so honored.
Yay!
It's so amazing because our first episode hasn't even aired yet. I just saw you put out a teaser saying that it's going to come out tomorrow. And I was like, oh my God, we haven't even seen the reaction to the first one. And here we go. Part 2. We're going to wrap it up. So at least we give everyone all at once whatever it is that we have to say, take it or leave it.
I love it.
And we'll go from there. So
yes, it's going to be great. I think the reaction will be amazing. I think people will love it. And I think it's just because of the authenticity and the honesty that I think you bring to the table. And honestly, I feel like it pushes me to be even more vulnerable in this situation, which is sometimes so hard for me. So I appreciate that.
And we're going to dig into that more, and I can't wait.
Okay, good.
Okay, first of all, I need to talk about how, and it's so funny because as soon as we joined this Zoom to start this podcast, I was like, I really can't say anything because I feel like everything we say, I always want it captured. Because I feel like it's always the moments you don't capture that are actually the best. I'm like, I'm just going to stay mute and speak when we're actually rolling. But I love this setup. You look so beautiful. Does your shirt say mama?
It says woman.
Woman. Oh my God. Because I saw the MA.
Yes.
Both work really well for you.
It's actually for a nonprofit here in Florida. So I got it because I, want to always support. So I will also link that nonprofit.
I love that.
And if there are anyone who wants to donate, let's do it. Okay, I'll send you one.
Yes.
Yay.
It's beautiful.
It's so fun.
It's also so funny because you get to see where we are in difference in climate. Like it's not even cold. It's cold here right now. Which is so unlike obviously sunny California, but you're obviously in Miami. You have the glow from literally all angles.
Yes.
And I saw your Instas this morning and I was like, she's just living her Miami life. Is it super hot there?
Oh my gosh, it's a beautiful day. And you know me, I run outside, so I get that perma-tan that I always want, because when we were living in Canada, I felt like I was always ghostly pale. So now I'm living more of a tanned lifestyle, which my dermatologist would not be supportive of, but we digress.
It's okay. The vitamin D works wonders. Today, the sun is not out and I'm really suffering. So my mood is definitely a little lower naturally. So right now in Miami, it is 78 degrees Fahrenheit for those who listen who are American, or for our dear Canadians. 27 degrees high up. Jealous.
Yes.
Okay, let me tell you what it is here. All right, in Santa Monica, California, it is 55 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, it's chilly. It's chilly.
Or a high of 16 degrees Celsius.
Oh, well, better than our friends in Canada.
That's true. But it's so funny. Just a quick aside there, but we won't ramble for too long. Everyone always says to me when I'm cold here, how are you cold? You're Canadian. And I'm
That's what they say to me.
This is why I'm cold. Good when you're cold, right?
Yeah.
And I say, tell me what you say. I say, it's because in Canada, your expectations are cold. So you're meeting your expectations with a winter jacket, winter boots, totally equipped. And then you're running in and out of different places in heat. So you don't really have to stay outside for that long, unless you're obviously intentionally doing so. But here, you're walking around without winter coat, without winter jacket, expecting sun.
Yes.
Then are shocked because let's say you're planning a day of, happen to be outside, and a lot of things are outdoors here. And then it's cold.
Yeah.
And then you're not used to being out and exposed to the climate that way.
It is. It's about setting expectation. Honestly, I think I make a joke out of it. And I always say, I've acclimatized too quickly and now I am a local Floridian. And when we were in New York over the holiday season, I could not stand it. And my expectations were, it's going to be cold. And then when we were out and about walking, oh my goodness, I did not like it. Yeah. I always say I was not born for the Canadian climate. I was born to be in the sunny, balmy, 80-degree weather. And I guess that's why it's good that I moved here.
Yeah. Listen, meant to be. Maybe that's also another digression conversation one day of even how two Canadians ended up in one Miami, Florida, and then two Santa Monica, California. Because I feel like those stories too are just obviously nothing that we ever imagined.
Totally.
But I wanted to kick it off actually with something that I've been meaning to do.
Okay.
And it's inspired by in Toronto, we used to have this like running news channel called CP24. Loved it. Always had the weather, the little 411 on what's going on. And on Fridays, they would start
Mm.
all their Friday mornings to like pump everyone up that was watching with the music. And I thought, wouldn't that be nice just
So
to like
fun.
ease into our podcast?
I love it.
Okay, so I have a song for today.
Okay.
I'm gonna play it. You don't know it. It's not like Beyonce or anything like that. By the way, Beyonce last night, the Grammys,
Oh my
huge,
God. Huge night.
huge,
And she looked amazing and so
huge.
surprised. And I was so excited for her. And Blue
Yes.
Ivy, I can't. We're just, I
Oh,
can't. I love her.
I know. And Taylor Swift giving her the award,
I
like full
know.
circle moment.
Full circle.
Whew. I feel like now we're a talk show, okay? I feel like this is the morning talk show. This is like, forget,
Now we can play the music.
Kelly and Michael. Yeah. Okay, so this is the music I'm playing. Okay, tell me if you can hear it.
Okay.
To wait for other people
Can you hear it?
to join me, to do the things that bring
Yeah.
me joy, do the
Hear it.
things that bring me joy, do the things that bring me joy, do the
Okay,
things
listen to
that
the
bring
lyrics
me
and then
joy,
just bob,
do the
bob,
things that
bob,
bring me
bob with
joy,
it.
do the things that bring me joy, do the things that bring me joy, do the things that bring me joy.
Bring the things that bring me joy. I like it.
Joy. 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 Joy.
How many people are podcasting and dancing at the same time?
Joy. Joy. The things that bring me joy.
So good.
I love it.
The things that bring me joy.
Let me do a smooth transition out as if I'm a DJ.
Well, it's true.
That
I
was
love
good,
that.
right?
So this is something that brings me joy. So I feel like that is
too.
so connected. And actually, over last week, I attended Tony Robbins' kind of few seminars. It was like a
No.
free live thing, and it was all about the things that bring him joy and also movement. And with movement, there is energy. With energy,
yeah.
there's positivity. And I feel
Yes.
like what a great reminder to our audience, to everyone listening in, that sometimes you just need to pause, turn on your favorite song, and dance and like just move your body and get that energy flowing and enjoy. And that's what it's all about.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Do
And
the
I'm
things that bring you
so
joy,
jealous that
everyone.
you went to that.
Yeah.
I would love to know more about that another time because I feel like anything Tony Robbins is so
Oh,
effective,
he's
so
so
amazing.
good. So good.
To have exposure to him is beyond.
Beyond.
And I have seen snippets of like, I don't know if it was him or just like his team that give you this like, I think it was like this. It was like very like intensely like move your body.
Yes.
And it is, as you said, it's like like it's not energy. I don't want to sound like, flu about it, but it's like literally like getting your like, nervous system, I think,
Yeah,
prepped and then
absolutely.
like out of the nerves in terms of like anxiety and
Absolutely.
inside the excitement or something like that.
Absolutely.
That's kind of what it is.
I think that's kind of what it is.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
I love it.
We got it.
We
That's
got
what
it. We got
that's what
this.
we're giving the peaks. Okay, so part 2.
Okay.
You
Bring
ready?
it. I'm ready.
You ready as you've, again, not really prepped and I've just done a couple notes? Okay, so part 2, I kind of wanted to start with, and I'm looking back to our text, if in case you see me looking down, because I wanted to quickly recap, like we figured out what kind of part 1 was, which is super exciting in terms of all about sharing kind of first impressions and what you do when you feel like people don't really understand you. I think it's kind of like to recap our first part 1. And I wanted to continue on with that and then ask you about what you think your first impressions are and then even share, because I know what people's first impressions were of you. But I wanted to just quickly say in my sharing, so it was very much like I thought about it being like when I was sharing the feedback that I heard, it feeling like a celebrity tweet. I don't know if I said this last time, like that.
No, you didn't say it was like a celebrity tweet, like a mean tweet.
Yeah, it felt like that. Because
Yeah.
it feels like the celebrities reading the mean tweets and seeing what people think of it. Because I wrote down what mine would be, and it'd be like, I'm Rachel, and I've been told that I can't be this happy. I can't be this happy, outgoing, bubbly, and real. It doesn't seem genuine and like I'm faking it. And it's just so weird to read it like that, right? Because it's
Right.
like, yeah, you're kind of taking ownership of it, but then not at all because you're like, this is so foolish to hear because it's not at
It's
all
so
close
foolish
to
to
the
hear.
reality. So, in terms of if that is obviously the feedback that I shared, just to like close the loop on it, and it's been interesting because since our conversation, I feel like I've surveyed a bunch of friends and family on what they thought about the first impressions that I received, and I felt like there are four schools of thought, and I want to
Okay.
share them with you
Tell
and
me.
get your thoughts. Okay, the first is very simply, no way, Jose. Like, why is being happy, bubbly, outgoing needing to be an ulterior motive? Why are those two things linked? No way, Jose. Those are the things I love the most about you. Fully supportive, 100% in your camp.
Right.
The second is your whole let them theory from Mel Robbins that you referenced, which is
Mm-hmm.
it's very much coming from their frame of reference.
Yep.
Let them think whatever they want because it's not at the end of the day anything that's bothersome to me. It's bothersome to actually more indicative of their life. If anything, we're not judging. It's just indicative of their life. Um, and to that point, it being indicative of their life, I wanted to note that it really isn't something that we want to also say like, people who think otherwise is negative versus the way that we think is positive. Like I really want it to be clear that it's just a difference of opinion. And I was talking to my husband, Mike, and wrote this down of a difference of opinion doesn't mean one way is right and another way is wrong. It can just be different and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important of what we're trying to say here,
Everyone
right?
has their own story and their own internal monologue and their own narrative. And often I think, and this is just my opinion, but I think people build stories about others based on what they know, based on who they are, based on what their perception of that person is without necessarily getting to know that person. It's just that first impression, right? So I think, you're right. There's no negative surrounding that. It's just they have a different perspective, a different story, and a different understanding based on their lived experience, and that's okay. I think it's really important to think about your first reaction and then your next reaction. So if I, come across someone and they are looking, angry or mean or their head is down or their body language is, off-putting, my first reaction is going to be like, oh, that's maybe an unhappy person, or maybe that's an angry person, or maybe I wouldn't want to be that person's friend. But my second reaction would be like, oh, well, maybe there's more to the story. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they got some bad news. Maybe their head is down because it's raining and they don't want to get wet. I don't know. But I think it's just progressing beyond that first reaction and trying to really give the benefit of the doubt and the understanding that we are so complex, and that first reaction is probably, I would say a majority of the time, probably 80-90% not true. And we need to peel back those layers.
Yeah, I totally, totally agree with you. And that's such a good reminder of it's not your first, it's your second.
Or third.
And
Sometimes
remind
it takes
yourself
a
that,
few.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Give yourself that second, third, fourth,
Yeah.
just to give yourself that grace and that person that grace.
Yeah.
To build on the analogy that you're given, I've heard this one too that really helped crystallize it for me. It was think about an animal, which this might go into animal cruelty, which is not what it's intended to do, but think about an animal that's just like making this atrocious noise, like screaming, it's just piercing your ears and you're like, oh my gosh, this animal needs to be quiet because this is too much. It's a wild animal that, let's say, you're just coming across on the street. You have no idea what's going on. And then as you're very angry, as it's making your blood literally boil, you're approaching this animal to be like, what is going on? You see that the animal's actually trapped.
Oh.
And it's being just crying for help because you don't obviously understand their language because they're an animal. You at first thought that, but then at second thought,
Yeah.
as you approach, thought that.
Yeah.
So it very much makes your point.
100%.
And that is also like the third school of thought that I heard, what were people fairly so, like, as we kind of like combated the discussion of like, what were the first impressions? How do you feel about it? Let's really think through it. They were combating it in a way where it was like, well, Rach, there's sometimes people who, very similar to what you just said, maybe they just don't have the capacity, or maybe they just aren't in the right frame of mind, or maybe they're distracted
Yeah.
and they're just not giving you what they need to in that moment. But it's like, if someone needs to hear something 5 times and you learn that about them, then that's not a, diss on them. It's not a diss on you. It's
Nope.
just, again, understanding each other's
Understanding.
languages. So I think it's, yeah,
Love it.
very much that point. And then the last one I thought was really interesting, and I think it'll
Okay.
go into today's conversation, and then we're going to get into you.
Okay.
The last one I'm going to quote, I'm looking at my friend's text to me. She goes, "My other thought about what you shared about your first impressions that you received was, generally people who are really warm slash welcoming, yourself included, have been hurt or are hurting and have made a conscious effort not to treat others like they've been treated."
Oh, I actually love that because I
Right?
feel like there is some truth to that.
I agree.
That
I
is,
agree.
that's profound. I like that.
Yeah. The 4 schools of thought to keep in mind whenever you get first impressions, but I think the real takeaway that hopefully is universal to all is, maybe it's not the first, but also just to know yourself at the end of the day. And now let's see how this applies to you.
All right, but not before a word from our sponsors. Okay, so we're back, and Rachel is gonna put me in the hot seat, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk a little bit about me, maybe, and first impressions of
Yeah.
me.
That's right. So what do you think people might say about you, as if I was to interview them and be like, what are your first impressions of Nicole? And then to contrast that, because maybe it's the same, maybe it's different, what do you wish their first impressions were if you didn't even hear anything from them? And then let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first impressions. So I feel like I'm biased because I've heard some people tell me that I can be intimidating. I've heard some people, tell me that my decisiveness, or particularly in a business setting, if I am a little bit more, dominant or aggressive or something like that, that can be taken as a negative thing. And people say I'm confident, which makes me laugh. So that is what I think, maybe people think of me. I once had a friend, and this was probably the first time I met her. I just had Mia, and we were going to another friend's house. I hadn't met a group of girls, and I was probably like, I don't know, 3-4 weeks postpartum, out of the hospital, had no idea how to do anything, like parenting wise. I was like, I don't know who this person is beside me. I love her a lot, but she's really little. I don't know what to do with you. So I remember distinctly, I wore like big baggy jeans, again, like just gave birth, and like probably a black t-shirt or tank top. Like I remember what I looked like. My hair was probably down because it's always down, but not done too much, not a lot of makeup. And I met all these beautiful new mamas. And then like the next week we went to another mummy lunch, and I think I had put myself together more like I usually do. And also because we were at this other friend's house, I wasn't wearing my heels. So I went to this other lunch. I think it was at a mall. I was wearing like, I don't know, 6-7 inch heels, tighter clothes, full makeup, full beat, full like, jewelry and, fun bags. And, I walked into the room, and this person said to me, "It's a good thing I didn't meet you this week, because I feel like I wouldn't have liked you, and I would have judged you. And like, I feel like you'd be, I don't know if the word is intimidating, but like off-putting." And so that really stuck with me, because professionally, I know I built a brand, like the, long red hair, high heels, kick ass, don't take names. That's my kind of professional brand. And that's probably the aura that I give off when I go into a room. I've been in enough rooms with enough, corporate males to know that there's a certain way I would need to, step up to the plate, if you will, to be perceived as someone who has a seat at the table. And so I learned to kind of manifest that and kind of be that. And, Tony Robbins even talked about the power stance, and I was like, okay, I need the power stance. I'm not confident at all. So what I give off and the way that my presence can be perceived is so not who I am, because I feel like if I were to describe myself, I'm like, I'm friendly, I'm bubbly, I'm not confident at all, at all. It's a hard job to walk into a room to look confident, because I'm not. And it's probably the antithesis of what people take of me. And I wear high heels, and people are like, how do you wear those heels? And I always say, because I'm vertically challenged, I make the joke, but it's in fact because I feel short and like inferior, and I feel like I need to be taller to have presence, right? So there are so many small tells from me, and I'm being like extremely open with everyone who's listening to say like, no, it's really not confidence. It is more me trying to, step into my own confidence. And there are small tools that make me feel more confident. And if that's like a big earring or if that's a high heel, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. I feel like what you just shared is so huge. Like it's just
You
like
bring it
you're
out of
obviously
me.
so self-aware, obviously so self-aware. Like I think it's not again uncommon to have heard that you come off very intimidating. Again, I've worked with you for many years, so I've heard it from people who've met you for the first time and have joined our team, or other, co-workers of ours. I've heard, bull in a china shop,
Oh
which as you
yeah.
referenced could come off a little bit negative because it seems like that's a little bit alarming to people. But again, it's because you've worked very hard, as you
Yeah.
just said, to know exactly what it needs to get this stuff done, to make sure that your voice is truly heard, and that everything that you've built so much equity in, you're actually then demonstrating around the table and making sure that it's not forgotten.
Yeah.
But then you share that you don't feel, which is shocking, that confident. Like when you're like, I'm laughing about it, I'm not confident. And I'm like,
What?
what? And
It's
then just to hear it, like for you to be like, yeah, like the heels or something, the hoops or something. I guess what I'm so curious on pushing a little bit more on is, even though that may be true to your story throughout the
Mhm.
years, and again, I've known your story, would you say you identify as someone who's insecure today versus confident? Like, is it looking at the opposite of
I
confidence?
think that's an amazing question. I think when I started, particularly when I was in my 20s, I felt like I needed to have an armor. And the facade of all of it is and was that armor. Because the way I dress and the makeup and the hair and the, whatever it is, made me more confident. At the beginning, particularly like when my dad passed away and I took over his business and I had to meet with, a male dominated industry and, get to the table, I was lacking confidence and I needed the armor. And then early on in my career, I think I started at craft when I was 20, really young, right out of university. And I had the most amazing insights person who I love so dearly, but she was older than me and she would just scream at the top of her lungs, Nicole, you're such a baby, because I was 20. And I had long hair and like looked really young. I was really young. What did I know at 20? But that made me feel really insecure at work. And so, all of those small little things made me, increase my armor, let's say. But now, like 20 something years into this, I may not be confident about my body. I may not be confident about my skin, but I know that I can do a really darn good job managing a business, managing a brand, growing a brand, understanding foundations, doing the strategy thing. And the confidence comes from a history of proven success. So when someone tells me turn around a brand, I know that I've done it 3-4 times with brands that are in different stages of life. When someone says launch a new business, a new brand, write a concept, whatever it is, create a new, brand identity. I've done it and I've seen success and I know the formula. And as a result, I'm confident in that respect.
I feel like a therapist now. I feel like I heard a lot about your work,
Yeah.
which I will vouch for. 100% true. If you need her, she can do all those things and more. But what's interesting is I didn't hear necessarily a lot of the confidence coming about just like who you are.
Yeah. And I think
Like,
who I am as, so, we always talk about this, and this is, something I want to share a little bit later is, the 3 questions to help you find out like who you really are and what you can achieve. And so when I think about myself as the human, I do think that like I'm a good person and I'm confident in that. I do think that I put 1,000,000% of my effort into my relationships and my community and my family and my, my husband and children. So I am confident in that. And I think that one mantra I've talked about with our team so many times is the tombstone moment, right? It's like when you're 80 and you're thinking about your life, when you're 90, when you're 100, you're thinking about your life, what regrets are you going to have? And I feel like I live my life that way to say, when I'm that age and I'm thinking about my life, I'm not going to regret not staying at that job or not doing that extra report or, working late. I'm going to regret not being with my family. I'm going to regret not being authentic with my friends or something like that. So I live my life that way. And I'm pretty confident in the fact that, I guess I'm trying to live that way with no regrets. And that helps me kind of align my actions to my values. So I love that I can be confident in that. And I think there's so many insecurities to your point, like, yes, I do overcompensate and try to be extra nice because, I was made fun of when I was younger. And, yes, I probably do overcompensate with, the physicality, the clothes, the hair, whatever, because I was, a lot bigger and made fun of as a kid and I had no confidence then. And sometimes it's that person that I was creeps back in. So it's a work in progress, WIP, work in progress. But, there are certainly parts of myself that I'm confident in, and work is one of them. And, being a good friend / mom is another. But there's work to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like it's so nice what you're sharing because I'm sure, again, first impressions, so many people see a picture of you and they're like, beautiful, confident. Has she ever struggled? I'm sure is a natural thought that comes to mind if
Oh,
they don't
yeah.
know you at all because of just how you present yourself. And yet here you are literally sharing that like you've so clearly composed who you are intentionally so by design because of everything that you've been through. And I feel like that agency and ownership is something that probably is why you and I bond so well
I totally agree.
because I feel like we're different, but there was a moment in time for both of us. I think for you, it was probably, I mean, I don't want to speak, this is your story. This is words that should come out of your mouth, but I feel like it was probably around the time when you lost your dad.
For
And you're
sure.
probably like, this is what my life could be. This is what I want it to be. And I know this is going to take work and I'm going to get after it. And I feel like you've probably not, correct me if I'm wrong, you've probably not stopped.
No, I mean, I think that's something that I actually think is so important. I think continuous growth and learning and evolution is so important. And, when I was younger, I always wanted to get there. I don't know where there was, but it's like, okay, I'm going to, finish high school early. And I did. And then I went to university and I'm going to get married and then I'm going to have kids and then I'm going to have a career and then I'm going to make it to brand manager, then director and then VP and all that kind of stuff. So, I wanted to get there. I didn't know where there was. But now I feel like there is evolution and constantly growing and constantly learning and constantly challenging myself to get different degrees and different certifications to, I take like these awesome Jim Quick courses. Like I just finished one on productivity. And so, for me that natural evolution and growth is the sign of maturity. Because I'm no longer kind of running somewhere. I feel like I'm just trying to grow positively and show that as an example to my family and, hope that the kids kind of take it away a little bit.
Oh, for sure. I mean, just through, I think your schedule and then just above and beyond your actions, obviously how you speak to them and how you speak to yourself. I think they for sure pick up on that. And
I think there are many evolutions, right? Like so many, I think of like books or chapters. And I think one of my chapters was absolutely finishing high school early, going to university and making a marked decision in my head not to carry the baggage of, people making fun of me or not feeling good enough or being overweight or, whatever that baggage was. I remember stepping into university and saying, I am not that person anymore. I am confident. I am smart. I tried to manifest all these positive things. And, I kind of told myself I was going to be a different version of me that no one knew because I knew so few people in my university. And then I met Mike and it was like, wow, this version of me that I want to be so badly that I'm kind of evolving into this person has now met like this guy who's so awesome, who is now my husband. But it's so interesting to think about the shy and closed off and literally like silent person that I was, and then slowly transitioning into the person that is a little bit more vocal, is a little bit more decisive, is a little bit more confident, and how that small evolution can change your life in a minute. Because the old me would have never walked up to Mike and said, hi, I'm Nicole. What's your name? And I did that. And I was like, what? I just did that. Oh my God. But I did. And now we're married for 19 years.
I love it. And I love the two of you and can also vouch for that relationship.
Oh my God.
Through. The best partnership ever.
Oh my God. Look at you and Mike though. Happy birthday to Mike.
It's so funny that I know, thank you so much. I feel like when you love someone so much, it feels like your birthday too. You're like,
100%.
It's my birthday. And it's so funny that we both have Michaels in our life. I think about what you just shared, and I think about almost like the devil's advocate thought. And again, this is just my brain naturally of how it almost just thinks about anything. And it's not a personal thing on your story. I could hear someone say, so it sounds like if we just, put it almost in a black and white way, and in the most simplistic of terms, obviously it's way more complex than this, but it sounds like it could be like, you started off shy, you ended up wanting to be outgoing and bold, and you became that. But then what is that fine line between someone who's maybe similar to you, young currently, and maybe wanting and desiring a different life for themselves that maybe they see on social media or pop culture, and they're like, I want to be that girl. And then what is also that fine line between then staying true to yourself and being like, no, then you got to stay authentic, because you don't want to just become, let's say, this girl who sure is outgoing and, gets the guy, but then is that really you? How did you maneuver through your personal story, knowing that wasn't who you were at that point in time, but then knowing that who you wanted to be was authentic, because you've obviously leaned into it.
Yeah.
And you are who you are today, not anything but proud to be who you are.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it takes time and evolution and a little bit of courage, I think. So again, it's that, and I don't know if I cognizantly asked myself that question. I know I cognizantly said to myself, I want to be different, because I knew I had the capacity. So it's something super interesting, and this is very common in our society. And I don't know the statistics, and I'll look them up and I'll post them in the comments after this episode, but young girls are super confident. They think they can do anything and be anything and, all that kind of stuff. It's the Run Like a Girl campaign until they're 10 nowadays, maybe 11, 12. And then suddenly their confidence drops. Their head goes down. They don't put their hand up first in school anymore. They're quiet. And that 100% happened to me. I distinctly remember when I was really little, I felt like I could take over the world. I felt like I could play tackle football with the boys, and I did. And I was good just like them. And then, slowly, whether it's, the body changing, the psyche changing, everything dropped to 0. It was this incredible change of, I am not good enough. And I remember coming out of it and into university and kind of saying, no, I think I am good enough. But that was just step one. So I will tell you that, introducing myself took a moment of courage. And of course, falling in love for the first time really also gave me courage, I think. Just because someone liked me for me, I mean, I could be silly, I could be funny, I could be no makeup. It didn't really matter. Like, I really felt like we were falling in love with each other for who we really were. Obviously, it's standing the test of time. So that was one part of it. But in university, especially in business school, you always have to go up and present as a group. I was the silent one. I was the shy one. I was the one, my heart was beating, my face was red, my palms were sweaty. I literally remember distinctly I could only wear black because it's like, God forbid, sweat stains, like the whole thing, right? Then I went into craft. I was so happy that I got the job, not confident at all again in my capability. And I was very quiet for a long time. I've told this story before. I remember my director came up to me and he was like, not everyone's in type A. You could be a type B. You could just like coast as like this product assistant forever if you wanted to. And I was like, how dare someone think that of me? But it was because I wasn't confident in my capabilities. And then, and I've talked about her before, shout out Farah Besner, who is she was a senior brand manager at the time. She was my boss. And she asked me to do something and I was like, I can't. I don't know. I can't. And she's like, what do you mean you can't? You can do it. She's like, you've done it before. I said, I know, but I can't. And she said, you're a smart girl. At the time, I was a girl probably in my early 20s. She said, you're a smart girl. I know you can do it. You're going to do it. You're going to present it by yourself. I believe in you. And she was like that person who was like, oh, she believes in me, like this person who I've looked up to, who is a remarkable marketer, who is a remarkable woman, who just, it seemed like had everything together, believed in me. And I feel like that gave me that necessary step to say, okay, if she can believe in me, I need to rise to the occasion. And the more positive feedback that I got from rising to the occasion, the more confident I got in speaking my mind, being decisive, managing a brand. And then that kind of seeps into the rest of the parts of your life, you know? So I think it's definitely baby steps. And I think it's learning a lot about what you feel brings you joy. Like for me, it's words of affirmation. That's my love language. So when suddenly people, particularly in my career, because at the time I really did define my life. I didn't have Mia at the time. I didn't have kids. I was married and I defined myself as Nicole, the marketer. And if people liked what I was doing and I had words of affirmation, great job. Wow, the brand grew. Wow, your campaign's awesome. I was like, this is living. Like, this is the person I should be. And so, you know, you were talking about the other day, like you just manifest into this butterfly from, you know, the cocoon.
Yeah. I feel like you touched upon so much there in the best way of like, even just, you were saying earlier, you know, you do things like wear the heels, wear the hoops. And of course it made you feel like you're maybe overcompensating for something. But what I loved about what you just said is it made it click for me that sure, maybe it could be interpreted as overcompensating, but also it's stuff that's brought you so much joy.
Oh my
like
God,
when you
totally.
put also those heels on and, you know, wear those hoops, you feel better than without wearing the hoops, without wearing the high heels. Like you're not doing it just to be also taller.
It's like a method of self-care.
Yes. And I think that's probably that difference between if people start to do things that maybe are who they aspire to be, but it feels off, it feels icky, it feels forced. I mean, it could just be a bad moment and maybe give it another chance. But if it makes them feel powerful and empowered and sexy and amazing,
totally,
then you lean right into that.
Absolutely.
Because that's what I kind of heard from you, as well as then when you find people who you can just be yourself with, like you with Mike.
Yeah.
Like that is then I can be loved for exactly who I am. And then when there's people who also see your potential, when you don't even see it yourself, which is exactly your mentors in life and exactly what you have always been for me.
Aw, thank you.
It's like when the trifecta of those three things come together, things that you love because it just makes you feel good, joyful, people who see you for you. God bless those people. Thank you so much for being in our life.
Thank you. Yes.
And then the people who push us to be like, yeah, Rach, you think you can't be on a podcast? Get on my podcast.
Get on my
podcast.
podcast.
What's going on.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what we were talking about before too, right? Like, you know, the people, you know, it's either they'll let them or it's like the people who truly want the best for you and believe in you. And sometimes you need to listen to those people. right? So I love that that kind of brings last week's episode into this conversation as well. And just like one side note, I think a lot of people watch their mentors growing up and define themselves as, you know, powerful or good or interesting or the definition of femininity based on what they've seen. So in my life, for good or for bad, my maternal grandmother and my mom were always decked out. It could be a cultural thing, a Slavic thing. I know a lot of, you know, listeners who are Slavic or Russian. I am Russian and Ukrainian. From my dad is Ukrainian, my mom's Russian. So much of our culture was about the beauty of femininity. My mom would like dress up in heels. When my dad, like an hour before my dad would come home, she'd put on her lipstick, she'd do her eyes. My grandma, even at 80 something, would wear her heels and would wear her nice clothes and would like just take so much care of her personal appearance. And to me, growing up, I would watch them wide-eyed doing their makeup or getting dressed and looking beautiful and fancy at all occasions. It didn't matter if they were going to the gym or to the grocery store or to a party. They were always like decked out. And I think for me, that was a sign of a powerful woman because those were my mentors. I grew up watching my mom and my grandma and being like, oh my God, you guys are amazing women. I want to be just like you. And so that transition of, you know, me finally being able to wear the clothes, the heels that I saw in my youth and just like dreamed of wearing the fun things, that to me was also a definition of femininity. So when I got to do that, I felt more powerful. So there's always a backstory. It's not just about high heels. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I feel like, that makes one, so much sense. Two, it's so beautiful to know because then it's like understanding you more, but also like your background more. And even then your like familial line more. And then I can see exactly what you said, like other people who maybe they came from a place where maybe their family thought it was a negative, showy thing. They could see you walk into a room and be like, whoa, but it's just such different frames of reference.
Yeah.
It's so funny because again, it all comes full circle. And I think it's just so nice that you're sharing that because also this week we know that you had a power pose, speaking of a Tony Robbins power pose, beautiful picture that you posted.
Thank you.
I feel like we should show the picture if we can. I'm not sure how you
try and show it.
But there's a beautiful picture.
I'll pop it in.
And Nicole, we'll never say this, but she looks so beautiful, stunning. Like the moment it popped up on my feed, I was like showing my colleagues. I was like, everyone, look, stop. You don't know her. She's stunning. Look at this.
Oh my gosh. That's so embarrassing.
I showed it to my colleague and he was like, yes, girl. I was like, yes, this is the reaction we need.
Oh, that's nice.
And
Thank you.
You had a previous photo on your LinkedIn, all your official kind of like social media platforms for a long time. Beautiful photo. Yeah. Beautiful photo. But I immediately, when I saw this picture, texted you and I was like, this needs to be your new picture.
She did. She texted me right away.
And what did you feel when you got that text?
I felt completely like, oh my God, I could never put that up there because people are going to think that I think too highly of myself and I'm overconfident and like, who does she think she is standing like that and, you know, doing a power pose and taking a picture like that. You know, I didn't want to be mislabeled and misjudged. And I think it's a really lovely photo. I think it's a flattering photo, but it's almost like I had to think 85 times before even posting it or putting it up. Because I lack the confidence that picture exudes sometimes. And, you know, sometimes it is people who love you who have to push because Rachel said you should. And I was like, you know what? Gosh darn it, I'm going to do it. And I did. And I put it up as my, you know, LinkedIn picture. And that's that. But sometimes it is really hard to come to terms with, you know, just that person that you exude and how you might be judged. But I am trying to live in my let them era. And, you know, if they judge, that is okay. Because, you know, I am okay with that picture. I am, that confident version of myself in that moment. Maybe that's not every moment, but certainly sometimes. And, I'm proud of the evolution that came with that picture, because it was so many moments of hiding behind people in a group photo, or, looking down or minimizing myself in certain instances, so that I wouldn't be in that kind of position to be judged. So, let them.
Let them. And then again, as you just shared your backstory, when people know your backstory, it's like even just more kudos to that photo, because you're like, wow, I now totally understand why she's probably wearing exactly that, looking exactly that way. And again, as if anyone else sees that photo and thinks anything differently, it's on them versus it being on you. I think another thing that just probably is a good way to even round up everything that we've been talking about is something that you shared with me when we're offline after the first podcast and we're riffing. And it was that knowledge that you shared of animals versus humans and the power of language.
Yes.
I feel like people need to know that, because that was just a mind-blowing moment for me.
So I guess I think we were talking about, I think it was probably sadness and not to take like a really negative shift, but suicide. And I think I was saying that of every, living thing on the planet, human beings are actually the only species that, take their own life. And that is because of language. And again, I'm going to source the study and the background on this, but it is because of language, because we have the capacity to tell ourselves such a negative futuristic story that we truly believe it's not worth living for. So language is so incredibly powerful, and the words that we say to ourselves, so incredibly powerful, because if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. So if you start using positive language and positive affirmations and positive words, and I feel like I'm a living example of this, things can manifest into positivity. And when you're down in the dumps and constantly saying negative things and believing about a negative future, that too can become so heavy. So it's super interesting that our language dictates how our brain perceives things, and how we can manifest different things is a powerful, powerful tool that we all have. And it's not easy, but I talk about the fact that when Mark was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I used the term like, that broke me. It really did. To say at a low point would be an understatement. Like, I needed to be strong for my family. So of course, like, I would never want him to see me broken, destroyed, crying, depressed, scared, truly at one of my lowest lows. And then the negative talk overtook everything. It's like, there is no hope. There is no future. This is the worst thing that could ever happen. Like, all of the negative things. And I sat in that negativity for like a couple of years. And honestly, I think that only probably in the last year of trying to come out of that negativity and positive self-talk and gratitude and just rebuilding positive synapses in my brain has that cloud started to lift. And I think there's some majorly powerful insights in how we talk to ourselves, because if we think we're bad, not good enough, not pretty enough, not this enough, not that enough, we're probably right. But if we start to come out of that and truly believe in ourselves and our capabilities, we're also probably right. And no matter how much someone can tell you, you're great at strategy, you're an amazing marketer, you're a star. Like, I know I've told you that so many times, until you believed it, it was hard for you to get there. You're like, me? No. But then it's like, I saw the evolution of you believing in your strategies and your brand plans and your creative and your ideas. And it's a beautiful thing when you start to believe. Love it.
Yeah. I feel like I knew you went through that really rough time. And honestly, like, Nicole didn't really share with too many people at that time how I think low it was.
Yeah.
I know you've given me like glimpses of it, but I think there's so much to probably unpack in your future podcast too about that time, because I know, again, it's a daily coaching moment with yourself that I think so many people can learn from.
Yeah.
And be inspired by, because I know I am in hearing what you went through. And I know people might think like type 1 diabetes, like that's a really intense diagnosis, of course. And of course it happening to your son who's so young, who isn't able to take care of himself, and his type 1 diagnosis is intense. But I think hopefully for those who have even pieced it together, like I think you protecting your family so fiercely is something that you put first and foremost.
Oh my God.
Because of your own experiences, and it makes complete sense.
For
and
sure.
It's also just like the most admirable human thing ever, whether it needs to make sense or not. Literally, you're a mom model for me, a mom role model for me. And so knowing how much Marky's diagnosis impacted you, I think that's even something that's interesting, because it's even not a health diagnosis of yourself. It's of someone who you love so deeply, obviously, but then also that you don't have 100% control over. So I feel like if you haven't done it already, I don't think you have. I feel like that's a whole podcast in itself.
I actually want him to come on. He's very open. He will.
Oh, and share the book. Okay, I can't give too much away. There's just goodness, so much goodness there.
There's lots of goodness.
But going back to, and I think this really nicely sums up everything, it's a story we all tell ourselves.
Yes.
It's the talk. It's the script. Every single second, whether we know it or not, there's something.
Yeah.
There's something running amiss of like, is it positive? Is it negative? Is it neutral? If it's nothing, that probably is something.
Yeah.
And you got to catch it. You got to be aware of it.
Yep.
And because it can take you, it can consume you, as you shared, or it can also lift you up if you think about the people who love you 100%. And who support you at the end of the day.
And the thing I would say is, and maybe a piece of advice, if I can give it to anyone who is, maybe in a negative space, or maybe in a space where they want to change, they want to gain confidence, I would say write it down with a paper and a pen or a pencil. Don't type it into notes. Don't voice type. Write your story the way you want it to be. And I think starting there is so powerful. So many of the best manifesting coaches in the world always say, write it down. Whatever it is you want, write it down, say it aloud, put it under your pillow, say it aloud 10 times. But the first step is writing it down. And sometimes it's so hard to get into the positive when there's so much negative in your head. So what I sometimes tell people, clients, patients in my coaching is split the paper in the middle. On the left side, do a brain dump of everything that sucks, everything that's shitty, everything that's weighing on you, all the bad. You have emptied your bad cup. There is nothing more left in that cup. It is empty. And now on the right side, fill that cup with positivity. What is your story? And so if you do that, you will feel so much lighter. I have done it myself, so I know I felt lighter when I emptied that negative cup onto that piece of paper and wrote probably pages and pages and pages, not just one side. And then start to tell your story. What are the things that you want? Who do you want to evolve to be? And you probably have it all within you, and everyone can do it. So that would be my piece of advice.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like I've done it in moments, but not consistently enough. And also not where I can see a great practice of like reading it very quickly in the morning. Maybe while you're brushing your teeth or something, like having it right there.
All of it. Having it right there.
I feel like that can really help.
I totally agree.
In your day.
I love it.
Okay. I feel like we're running out of time, but did you also, just to not leave people on a cliffhanger, did you have your 3 questions that you wanted to share with people?
I do. I'm so excited to share these.
Read your brain.
All right. So one of them is, a little bit repetitive, but here are the 3 questions. So this question helps you become your best self. So if whatever it is that you were doing right now would pay you $1 million, how would you do it? Right? So
how would you do it?
How would you do it? So, as an example, you're making dinner. What if someone said to you, this dinner, I'm going to pay you $1 million. How would you do it? Probably to the best of your capability. How you do anything is how you do everything, right? So when you want to become this best version of yourself, every small thing can build up your confidence to be that great person. but treat it like it is $1,000,000 job. Taking care of your hygiene, $1,000,000 job. Getting into a workout, $1,000,000 job. Someone is going to pay you $1,000,000 for your next berries class. Are you going to max out on that tread, or are you going to play it safe at 9? I'm not sure. I think I would max out. For $1,000,000, I'd go 15. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I like it.
So that's question number one. Question number two.
That's a good one. I've never heard that one.
Yeah. Question number two. And this I heard, I think it was Jeff Bezos. He was talking about how he decided to leave his, finance job and actually start Amazon. And it's kind of the tombstone moment question. And it was like, when you're 80 years old, how will you feel about this decision? Will you regret not doing it? Or will you be proud that you tried? So whatever it is that you're scared of, even this podcast is an example of like, I was so scared. I mean, I'm building a business, Health Collective is a huge part of my day to day. But I said to myself, am I going to regret not doing the Healthy Pod? Absolutely. Like when I'm 80 and I had the opportunity to talk to people and just connect with a community and connect with you in this way, would I have regretted it? 1,000%, no doubt in my mind. So is this a difficult thing to do? Is this a skill I need to learn? All the things, all the questions and the fears, absolutely. Possibility of failure. So scared of failure, hate failure, but failure is first attempt in learning, and this is a learning experience. But if I hadn't done it, when I'm 80, I'm like, God, I wish I would have done it. So when you're 80, are you going to regret it or not? That's the second question. Okay, so this is a big one for me because I am still building up to this. So whenever I talk about relationships, I often say, mostly to my kids and my husband, you're the love of my life. When I, see Marky and, I say, Marky, you're the love of my life. Mia, I text her in the morning, you're the love of my life. Mike, love of my life. But I heard Viola Davis talk about this, and she actually said, you need to be your own love of your life. You need to love yourself to that extent that when you wake up in the morning, you don't think it's your closest and dearest family. You think it's yourself. And if you can wake up in the morning and go to bed before you go to bed and answer, who is the love of your life? I am. Then you've done right by you. And therefore you can do right by all the others that you love so dearly. But self-love is so important because I feel like this about me. I feel like for so many, always the sacrificial lamb. Like, I come last. Like, how many times have I said, I'm not cooking myself dinner? Mark has his dinner, Mia has hers, Mike has his. I don't need anything, I'll just munch on some lettuce. Like, how is that self-love? And how is that an example to my children to love themselves? It is not, or how is it, to feel guilty about working out when that's actually bringing me joy and health? There is no guilt because I know that I'm doing it out of self-love, and I'm also doing it to give back to my family as much as I can, to my clients as much as I can, to my friends as much as I can. So that question of who's the love of your life and did you do right by them? And if it's you and the answer is yes, you've had a good day, maybe that's the barometer. So those are kind of like the three questions that I would pose to people to say, are you, stepping into your best life?
I love that. I love that so much. I'm going to reflect upon that big time. Can you just recap them for me one more time?
Yeah. Number one, if whatever it is that you're doing would pay you $1,000,000, how would you do it to the best of your capability, right? So approach things with that much zest and fervor and excitement. The second thing is when you're 80 years old, how will you feel about this decision? Are you going to be proud? Are you going to regret it? What's the thing? And that really aligns with values. And the third thing is, can you honestly say today you were the love of your own life?
Love it. Super thought-provoking. I feel like in any case, all three of those, even if you take one and think about it, it's going to shake some shit up in your life to be like, are you really? What are you doing? What does it consist of? What is uniquely you? All those things.
I mean, the biggest one is the tombstone moment. Don't have any regrets. You're not going to want someone to say they were a great finance person, accountant, marketer. They had a great campaign. They were great at leading workout classes. You want someone to say so much more. So, ask yourself that question.
I feel like what would be great is before this podcast goes live, if you and I think about what our tombstone wants to say,
Oh my gosh.
what we want it to say, and then put that out there and
I'm
be like, that's
ready.
what this episode was about.
I'm
I'm not
ready.
ready yet, so I need a couple minutes to think about it. But yeah,
Well, did you
I
have
think
any
that's really
questions that
powerful.
you kind of ask yourself?
Honestly, those were great. Those were great. And ones I've never asked myself. I've heard like, what would you do if work wasn't a factor in terms of if you were just able to be paid for whatever it is that you want to do in your dream day.
Yeah.
Like I've heard prompts like that,
Dream
and that
day,
it's like
yeah.
a take on that million dollar question, but not how. That was a different take that really threw me that I loved. So I've heard like if someone was to pay you $1 million and you could do anything in your day, what would it be? Because that's
Right.
like a way to just
That's
get
a
to
great
it
way.
without it being obviously career. And then I think it's just understanding the difference between like micro moments and macro moments in
Mm.
building that dream life. Like, and I can see that too in what you were saying about in trying to do everything 100%. Like, I think it will help because you will quickly know what gives you energy and what drains you, and what should probably be capped at. Maybe you're not, running at 100% right now because of a knee surgery. So that's going to be capped at 60%, and that's fine, but
Yep.
that's your 100%.
Yep.
But I feel like it then allows people to also figure out balance
Yeah.
because I feel like that's also what could come out of those three questions that you posed and figuring out your dream day. You're going to want to do everything
Yeah.
probably at full speed, but then it's
Mhm.
finding
The
that
checks
right
and
like
balances.
formula. Yeah.
So
That
there's
really makes you jive. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say two things. Number one is the episode before episode 1 of our chats aired. I talked a little bit about what I used to say. Do you remember I used to say mediocrity is not an option for campaigns?
Yeah.
So I used to say that
No
all the time.
pressure, no
I
pressure.
actually, yeah, no pressure, Rach. Just mediocrity is not an option. But then I changed it. I don't know if you remember, but I said, okay, we're going to pick and choose where we're going to go all out, full steam ahead. And we're going to choose mediocrity when it's not important and it's not going to impact, the bottom line, when it's not going to impact the business. Like this whole, 20% of what you do will really drive 80% of revenue or benefit and all that kind of stuff. So we would pick, and that's where we would go hard. And other things we would say can be mediocre. But what I would say is, if it's live or die based on what it is that you're doing, do it as if someone's paying you $1 million. If it's like brushing your teeth, you don't have to get $1 million for brushing your teeth. You can probably make 100,000 and you're good. So that's the first thing that I wanted to share. And then I forget the second thing. It might come to me, it might not. But definitely choose your battles when it comes to that $1 million question. But if you think it's going to be worth $1 million in the grand scheme of things, meaning it's going to bring you value, it's going to bring you joy, it's going to bring you fun, it's going to bring you levity, do it at that level.
I love that. And as you said, it's all an evolution. So it could be evolution of face skincare regimen today, but then that's different a year from now,
Yes. Maybe. Oh, I remembered what I wanted to say. Last point, because now you've got me talking. I think a morning routine of the micro moments can set your life up for success. So in the morning when we wake up, we have the most focus. This is proven. We have the most capability. We have the most intensity, and we're most alert. So in the morning, if you, as a piece of advice, if you want to take it, can set up a morning routine that will bring you to the next level of joy, of happiness, of peace, build your perfect morning routine. It's also the time where we have moments to ourselves the most, right? Like even if I wake up before the kids, if I have moments to myself, I'm waking up, I'm meditating, I'm learning something new, I'm working out. I've built that perfect routine that when I have my perfect morning, I know my day's gonna be freaking amazing. And those are the micro moments that can make and evolve the macro moments into phenomenal times. So morning routine.
And it's you being the love of your life.
Yes, exactly. When you take care of yourself and fill your cup, you're like, this is great. So fill your cup, everybody.
Fill your cup. Do what feels good. Well, I feel like that's all the time we have.
It's all the time we have. It is indeed. It is indeed. Are there any final thoughts?
Just that I hope that you and I talk about a lot, and I think that's the beauty of you and I being together. There's an
So much.
abundance of conversation that we could have. And I just hope that maybe even like a little bit resonates with someone out there. So if there
Absolutely.
is that connection with anyone, we'd love to hear it. Get a hold
Yes.
of us however you
Yeah,
want.
subscribe,
Instagram,
like I
subscribe,
put your Insta on there as well so that you can everyone please
whatever.
connect with Rachel. She is literally a shining star, a light, a airy, breezy happiness, and it's authentic and it's real. And if you get to know her, you are one of the lucky people in the world. So I want to close by thanking you so much for taking this leap, for being on the Healthy Pod, for sharing in your authenticity, and for provoking me to share in my authenticity, because not everyone can get that out of me, but I know that you can. So I love you and I thank you so, so much.
I love you too. Thank you
Aw,
for having me on. It was
thank
a
you.
true honor.
Yay. Can't wait for the next one. All
Yeah, me
right.
too.
Bye,
Okay.
everyone. Have a good
Bye.
week.